Good morning.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm Bob O'Halloran. I'm the director of the School of Hospitality Leadership, and it is my pleasure this morning to introduce this session's speaker. I'll let him talk about grander things or whatever, but I'll give you the basics. Correct me if I make a mistake. So he's president and CEO of the Greater Raleigh Convention and Visitor Bureau. And as you might have noticed in the news and on social media and so on and so forth, especially if you're social media types, there's a lot going on in Raleigh these days. Things are moving in a lot of different festivals, in hotels, in a whole variety of avenues or whatever. So Mr. Dennis Edwards is as I said, is the president and CEO of that organization and leads that effort. He is also a member of the School of Hospitality Leadership Advisory Board. And we're very proud to have him with us. And if you would help me welcome him, I'll let him get started.
Well, thank you, Bob. I'm going to go ahead and use a microphone because if you're like me, my hearing's not all that great, so it's a little easier. But it is a pleasure being here. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our organization, but more importantly, how we impact economic development overall. Some of you might be familiar with the role of the CVB, but it's real simple. Our job is to market and sell. Even though we're Greater Raleigh, it's all of Wake County. So it's every venue, hotel, product that we have in Wake County is our responsibility. We also, so what does tourism mean? We have a staff of 32 people that draws people to Wake County on a daily basis, and I'll share with you a little bit about that breakdown. But in terms of economic impact, one way we look at it is the amount of expenditures that we have. And last year, as you can see, we had 15.8 million visitors, spending over 2.3 billion, and most importantly, and this is what our elected officials, a lot of residents look at, 243 million in state and local sales tax was generated by these visitors as well. So if you think about it, that 243 million goes directly back into social services, fire, police, roads. A lot of what our residents are paying for, our visitors certainly help pay for as well. The other measurement tool that we look for in terms of economic development is we have two forms of taxes in Wake County. We have the prepared food and beverage tax, which last year generated 29.1 million. That was the best year on record, believe it or not. And the prepared food and beverage tax, again, 37.9 million. What's nice about this is, and why this is so important, we are funded, our organization is funded as from part of this. We get about 9.2 million. The rest of it goes into what we refer to as the interlocal fund, and those funds go directly back into tourism infrastructure for all Wake County. So we look to develop product that we know that will drive visitation, but at the same time provide infrastructure for our residents in Wake County and hopefully in the entire state, some great amenities to enjoy. So things like Wake Med Soccer Park, Marbles Kids Museum, 5-County Stadium, the expansion of the Museum of Art and the Natural Science Museum, the Convention Center and the PNC Arena have all been funded through the interlocal fund. So all this product that we're building in Wake County is not on the backs of our residents, but is being paid for by our visitors. And that gives us some great amenities as well. The other thing we look at is job growth and job creation. Certainly during the pandemic, our height was about 28,000 employees directly employed in the hospitality sector from Wake County. That dropped down to about 17,000 during the pandemic and started to see a little bit of an increase last year. We are, again, that's one of our initiatives to try to get that workforce back. But the good news is we are employing a lot of people that depend on the job that we do. That's their livelihood. So that's a pretty significant amount of people in Wake County that depend on us. So our department, we've got various departments. One department is our convention sales department. We are responsible for selling and marketing the Raleigh Convention Center, but also every hotel in Wake County. So we'll chase a wedding group of 10 rooms up to a large convention of 10,000. So we have sales team deployed in the marketplace that is always prospecting, finding associations, corporations that are interested in the market. The one thing that we do though is we tie a lot of our efforts strategically with Wake County economic development. So a lot of the types of businesses that are brought into Wake County are a lot of life science, biotech, the financial, and like MetLife and Fidelity. Those are some of our key markets. We go after the same types of conventions because we know that we've got great speakers. There's a wealth of knowledge right in our backyard, but there's also a wealth of knowledge of the decision makers. They already know our area and how well we are positioned to not only bring companies in, because a lot of the universities and companies that we have in the market, but and it makes it a little easier to sell when they're looking to book a convention. We also have a destination services department. Their job is to be really the liaison between the meeting planner and the destination. So once a convention or a sporting event is booked, this department then jumps in and works with that event organizer to make sure that if there are things like transportation, photographers, special signage, permits that need to be done, this is the department that helps all that out. And they also handle and manage our visitor information center as well. We also have the Greater Raleigh Sports Alliance. This is our sports department within our bureau. They chase primarily youth, amateur, and collegiate sporting events. So it can be anything from soccer tournaments, basketball tournaments, to the NCAA men's or women's basketball, lacrosse, all the way to the NHL All-Star Games. So we do work some with Carolina Hurricanes when it's a major event, but it's primarily youth, amateur, and collegiate sporting events as well. And then we also, even ultimate frisbee is a new niche market for us. We're starting to be a sought after destination for that particular market as well. Then we have our marketing communications department. This is the department that they manage all of our website, all of our social media, digital assets. They manage all that as well. And they're really our brand managers. So anything that comes out of our department, marketing takes a look at it to make sure that it meets all of our brand standards as well. But they do a phenomenal job. They also handle all of our advertising and all of our collateral as well. And we started this program about, actually during COVID. We received about $2 million from our county through CARES Act money, and we created the Visit Raleigh Studios. So now, and this is available to any resident, any business in Wake County, and quite frankly, any event organizer that wants to promote Wake County. All these assets are available. So we now have 7,000 photographs of the destination. We did 90 different drone shots of every major venue in the market. So we have some great aerial footage, and we have about 120 360-degree virtual tours of all of our major venues. The reason we did this during the pandemic is a lot of our event organizers, they were planning for conventions or events that were happening in 25, 26. They couldn't travel to do site inspections, but they still needed to see the venues. So we created this asset, and we're now going to continue to update it because it's been very well received. We also have a PR department. Their job is to go out and sell and pitch stories about Wake County. So it'll be everything from Bon Appetit to Southern Living, Our State Magazine, trying to constantly pitch stories on the market. And they also handle all of our international market as well. Now, the one thing I want to touch a little bit on is what we call Destination 2028. So back in 2017, we did not have a destination strategic plan for all Wake County. We have our own business plan, marketing plan, but when I say strategic plan, our goal was how do we increase visitation by another 5.2 million visitors by 2028. So we hired a company called JLL. They came into the marketplace and spent 13 months in the market. They met with all the municipal elected officials, town managers, clients, resident surveys, to really determine what were some opportunities for Wake County that would help drive that visitation. They even looked at our marketing plan to see if there are things that we could adjust from a messaging standpoint. So that we launched the plan then, so they came back, believe it or not, it was a 150-page document, came back and came back with some key recommendations that we started implementing in 2018. And I'm going to touch on some of these plans because I think what you'll find is that they addressed 8 different pillars. So any destination, if they came into Greenville, they may not have the same 8, but they would identify opportunities for any destinations. For us, it was these 8 pillars that they identified. So from a meetings and conventions pillar, they identified that we needed, and we kind of knew this all along, another convention hotel adjacent to our convention center. So we have now, as a result of this plan, we've sent out an RFI to find out if there were developers interested. There have been, and what we did is we have 2 sites in front of the Performing Arts Center. So we're going to use one site, and they're both owned by the city of Raleigh. So one site will be for a hotel. It has to be at least a 500-room hotel. The other site will be residential. Both sites are zoned for 40 stories. So particularly for residential, it'll likely go up to 40. I'm not sure if the hotel will be 40 or not, but there is conversations that they could even put residential above the hotel. So we have been very, very involved with the RFI process. We actually have a short list now. In fact, next week we start interviews with the final developers to find out a little bit more about what they need, what their expectations are. And our goal is to try to get a developer hired by February and get moving on the construction. But that was one opportunity for us that came out of the Destination Strategic Plan that we are definitely starting to implement as well. The other portion that came out of for the meeting section was an expansion of the Raleigh Convention Center. So we're in the midst of starting to do some analysis and focus groups with clients to find out what an expansion should look like and what are the needs, because as you all know, meetings have changed dramatically over the last 5 years. Sitting in classroom settings, or people like a little bit more informal networking opportunities. So the design of a convention center could look a lot different by the time we build this. The other area that we looked at is enhancing our sports complexes. One is the PNC Arena, which is over 20 years old now, so it's definitely due for a facelift. So we have now dedicated money to do a major renovation of the PNC Arena. That will start by next summer. And then we're also looking at doing development around the arena as well. So taking some of the parking lot that is adjacent to the arena and do some retail and commercial development at the same time. We are also going to go ahead and include a sports book in the expansion of the arena in hopes that wagering will be passed in the legislation before too long, and so we'll be prepared for that. But this has been a very complex project for us as well, because particularly the development around the arena, because that is owned and managed by NC State, the state of North Carolina, the Department of Agricultural, the Centennial Authority, and Wake County. So we have 5 entities that we're trying to negotiate with to make sure that everybody's happy with the development. And oh, by the way, the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, which is also probably going to do the majority of the funding of this development. So, but we are moving along, and we're very optimistic that this will be, well, we're actually in the design stage now, so it's definitely going to happen. The other thing that came out of the plan is we need a new indoor sports complex. So we worked a lot with communities around Wake County to figure out what is the need, what space are we looking at. We figured out, we worked out an agreement with the town of Cary. We're going to be building a 220,000 indoor sports complex that will be able to have about 20 volleyball courts, 12 basketball courts, the ability to have a 4,000 seat arena that we can do esports and gaming in. And it's going to be a great venue. That too is in the design stage now, and we hope to have that up and open by 2026. But it's going to give us another great amenity for sports in the market. The other area that we worked on is esports. You all probably know what that is. I'm still trying to educate a lot of our old timers in Raleigh what gaming and esports is, but we have one thing we identified about 3 years ago is we have 120 developers just in the triangle in esports. The big one being Epic, but there's a lot of other developers in the marketplace. We also have all of our colleges and universities in the triangle now have esports teams or curriculum within their universities or colleges. So we started pursuing esports and gaming, and we've had a lot of luck in that. What we found, though, is we worked with the General Assembly this past session and created an esports incentive program from the state of North Carolina. We are the first state in the country to have this incentive, but so we came to Representative Jason Sain, who oversees the Budget and Finance Committee, and asked him if he could present a bill kind of modeled around the film incentive program that North Carolina has. So any gaming producer that does competition in the state of North Carolina now, if they spend at least $150,000, they qualify for a 25% rebate of what they spend. So it's a great incentive for the entire state now to go after esports competitions. We have now Fortnite coming in November. This will be the first time they met in 3 years. And that's going to be a great event for us. We have Call of Duty coming in December. We had Halo last December. And Apex Legends a couple months ago. So, and there's a lot more in the works, but esports is really becoming a big market for us. The other thing that we looked at is signature events. So we've set aside a fund to help attract and go after some major events that will help drive overnight visitation. I mentioned Apex and Fortnite. We had Farm Aid last month, which is an all-day concert, sold out. About 80% of the attendees were from out of market. The NHL Stadium Series, we're hosting the first outdoor game for us anyway, at Carter Finley Stadium at NC State. That'll be in February. So we are developing a 4-day festival around that event. So we've got NC State, UNC basketball game one day. We've got a concert. We're doing a fan fest festival downtown, all which will be free, the festival. Tickets you got to buy. But that's going to be a great event. Be televised nationally on ABC. Bluegrass Festival, we produce a 2-day festival every year now. We're in our 10th year. We produce that. We bring in 7 stages, 150 bands, all free of charge. We attract about 200,000 visitors a year. And then Dreamville, J. Cole lives in Raleigh, started the festival with us. He's been trying to do it, but hurricanes and pandemics haven't helped. But we've had 2 festivals now, and that's going to be an annual event. And we worked with him The first year was just a 1-day. It's now a 2-day event, and we're working with them on doing an entire week of activities where people go have a chance to meet the artist, talk to them about how they do their lyrics, etc. So really cool opportunities in the future that we're working on. And then key attractors, we're working a lot with museums, parks. This is a rendering of Dorthea Dix Park. It's a 310-acre park that we took over. The city of Raleigh purchased it from the state, and we now have an entire master plan. We kicked off a groundbreaking about a month ago for an incredible, it's called the Gibson Play Area, but it's a playground on steroids. They're spending about $25 million just on that playground area. So it's going to be really hands-on, but we're working very closely with the city on the master plan of that. We have a program coming into the Natural Science Museum called the Dueling Dinosaurs. This is where 2 dinosaurs somewhere millions of years ago were killed, destroyed, and they actually they have the remains are all there together, all the way to the skin. So those dinosaurs now live in Raleigh, and there'll be a full-blown exhibit that we're working on. That'll be up and running in about a year and a half. And then we also created for individual leisure a program where we worked with NC State on a program called People First Tourism. And this is to create experiences so when you come to Wake County, and it might be 1 or 2 people, usually up to about 6 to 10 max, we have different experiences that people can book and meet different artists, different developers. So if somebody is coming into the market and they want to learn about tobacco farming, we have experiences that they can go out and meet a tobacco farmer and learn about that, or certain arts and crafts materials. We have about 28 experiences right now. Our goal is to eventually get about 100 different experiences. And then certainly we're getting very well known for our culinary scene and all of our craft beers, so we continue to promote that as well. And then we work a lot with a lot of our developers that are developing different neighborhoods now to ensure that whatever they do, that they think about the visitor as well as the resident. The mindset for a lot of developers when they're building these neighborhoods or developments, it's all about the resident. So we want to encourage them, and they've done a great job, whether it's public art, easy accessibility, wayfinding, and so we worked very closely. This is a picture of a development called the Ironworks, which is near downtown. And then this is a new park in the town of Cary. We worked very closely with them to make sure that there were different unique experiences in that particular park as well. Then from regional development, we work very closely with RDU and our partners on air service. We have Iceland Air now, that's daily service to Iceland. And then we're working on about 5 other new international markets, creating incentive programs to help lure more airline and more service. And then we also work, I will get through this very quickly, a local university very closely as well. So we won't mention who that is. Quality of life is another big deal for us. We are very involved with everything from litter to homeless issues, mental wellness, because everything, if you come into a destination and you see a bunch of homeless people or people that have mental wellness issues or a bunch of litter, it's not a good experience. So we are very, very involved with a lot of social services issues as well, because it does ultimately impact our quality of life and our visitors' quality of life. So we've been very involved with the NCDOT on this litter program. And then we also work very closely with many of our municipalities. I'm on the board with the Regional Transportation Alliance. I'm getting commuter rail for future travel within our county, and we've been very successful on that. We now have finally worked out an agreement with CSX, where we will eventually have a line going from Clayton all the way to Chapel Hill. with numerous stops in between, and then an S line that will take people from Cary all the way to DC, and that will be a multi-speed train as well. And that's all in the works. And then we also work very closely with our greenways to make sure that that all connects. And then also workforce. I mentioned earlier that workforce has taken a big hit. We have worked very closely with the North Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association, as well as our local organization called Capital Area Workforce on creating programs on how do we get people back to the hospitality workforce. And we received a grant from the state, NCRLA did, for $5 million. Our county set aside another $2.5 million to help with messaging and advertising and research to find out what do we need to communicate to let people know the value of the hospitality world and the career opportunities, long-term great career opportunities that are in the hospitality segment. And there's a little work to be done with that, but it's helped. And then on the national level, I'm also on the U.S. Travel Association board, and we had a big win last week. We've been working, well, 2 big wins. We've been working really hard with the administration to uncap and increase the number of work visas for the U.S. We were at 63,000. We finally got them to double that now, so we've got another 63,000 work visas that are for non-agricultural, so it's really for the hospitality industry. That's happening, and we're really, really close to getting a position, the Under Secretary Department of Tourism on the cabinet with the administration. Tourism has never had a seat at the table on the administration level, so we're about 99% done with that, but tourism now will have a daily permanent voice with the administration. And so there is a lot of advocacy work that I continue to do with both state, county, city, and even national that we continue to work with on increasing and improving everything we do from economic development. So I don't even know where we are with time, but that is 11:29. So we've got 15 minutes if y'all want to, for any questions or anything you'd like me to expand on. Anything? Yes.
So you're Visit Raleigh, but you work for all of Wake County. How is your relationship with, I'm certain there's a Visit Durham, Visit Cary, like equivalent. So how do you integrate and work with them to, make sure it is a county-wide focus?
Well, so there is a Visit Durham because they're in Durham County.
Oh, that's right.
So, but Cary is so one of the things I think is really important is that we continue to have, so there are 12 municipalities in Wake County. I meet with the town managers at least every quarter. I meet with the chamber execs every quarter, and most of the elected officials at least 2 or 3 times a year. To make sure that they understand what we're doing, that they are buying into it, because it's all about the brand. I mean, it's a lot of our youth and amateur sporting events are in the town of Cary. But the town of Cary understands that we still have to market this as Visit Raleigh. Because anybody that lives in California, Colorado, they could care less about the boundaries. They know Raleigh, primarily state capital. We've got an airport. So there's some branding already that's there. So it just didn't make sense to change and fiddle with a bunch of names. So it's a lot of it's just communication and making sure that they understand and we listen to their concerns as well. It's not, we don't tell them what we're doing. It's a dialogue to make sure that, like that indoor sports arena that I talked about in Cary, we're bringing to the table about $28 million to help fund that arena. So there's money that we bring to the table as well that always opens their ears a little bit more, but it's a partnership. But I will say, but we do have a lot of dialogue with our partners, other bureaus in the state, Asheville, Charlotte, Winston-Salem. I mean, there are particularly advocacy issues that we all have in common that we work very closely together on. So, you had a question? Oh, yes.
I did. It was similar to hers. What does that partnership look like for Visit Greenville? And, not just us, but all the smaller areas around that benefit from people coming to Raleigh, or when we have events, they fly into Raleigh and drive over. Is there conversations like that happening?
Yeah, I mean, really kind of depends on the size of the event, right? So, and a perfect example is Pinehurst is hosting, Pinehurst has the US Open coming in 2024. Major event. Pinehurst has 1,200 hotel rooms in the entire county. And they're expecting hundreds of thousands of people for the US Open. So we work very, very closely with Visit North Carolina, Greenville, Fayetteville, Winston-Salem, Charlotte. We're all having conversations now on how do we make sure that that visitor experience for the US Open is really a great experience, and that because it benefits the entire state. And so whenever there's particularly a national, international event that might be coming into one of our neighboring communities, we definitely will work with Greenville or Winston-Salem to make sure, to make sure that the communication is consistent, that the brand is on point, and usually we'll bring in Visit North Carolina to kind of act as that umbrella, but we all have a seat at the table. But
Because I'm a recruiter for positions, and part of the thing that I have to recruit for is what you can do outside of here. So not only am I trying to get them here to visit and live here, but then I utilize things from the Outer Banks for Raleigh
Yep.
to kind of do that. So where does that kind of conversation start happening from the residents that live here, things they can do in Raleigh as us being visitors?
well, it's partially comes to advertising and branding, right? But digital and part of you brought up part of why we did that Visit Raleigh studio. We're doing a mass communication now to all of our recruiters and realtors in Wake County to let them know they've got access to that. I mean, so if there's a realtor that's trying to create their own website about why should you move to Wake County, use our images. I mean, we've got it, we have it done. And the messaging and branding is already done. So we've got a great brand book that we have on our website that anybody should use when they're talking about Wake County. But you brought up a good point, and we always hammer this home with our elected officials as well, and fortunately ours get it. But it all starts with the visit. Anytime companies are trying to bring in employees there's retention, there's workforce development, trying to get companies to move into your county, it all starts with a visit. So that experience that a CEO may have, or a student that's graduating from a university that's thinking about moving to Greenville, they have to have that good experience, or they're not going to come back. And therefore, that company's not going to get that recruit. So we all have to work together on that. So a lot of it comes down to messaging. I will tell you, 90% of our advertising is all digital. And we can shift it. We can shift our messaging, and there's some great trackability by doing that. We know who's viewing what and what the interests are, and we share that with our partners constantly. So we have some great reports. A lot of our decisions now is all based on data. We do, in fact, we're probably going to be hiring a full-time data analysis, data analytics manager probably in July, just because we have all this data coming in, and we've got to figure out exactly how to monitor that data, how to use it, and how to share it with our partners even better. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Do you expect an increase of visitors due to bigger companies like Apple moving to the Triangle area?
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing, if you couldn't hear it, are we seeing any increase in visitors due to companies like Apple move into the area? We're already seeing it. And a lot of it is people that are, like I just said, they're thinking that they know they're moving to the Raleigh market, So they'll come in and spend a week or two just checking it out and spending time meeting with realtors or whatever. So they're staying in hotels. There's construction workers moving in now. So it's just a cyclical number of visitors. But yeah, and as a result of Apple coming in, there are already a number of other companies that are looking to relocate as well. So it's not to mention all the meetings and conventions that they'll eventually be having once they get settled as well. So, yes, ma'am.
When it comes to Visit Raleigh, like how do you project, do you get input from like smaller businesses in Raleigh to make that part of the experience? Because some of the tourists will want a local, type of experience, maybe not just something where you go in a neighborhood hotel.
So yeah, so that I had a slide that said, and I mentioned the people first tourism. That's how we engage the small companies. A lot of those are entrepreneurs. They might be people that don't even think they're a company or truly have a business, but they have a unique experience that they can provide or share with our visitors. So, it might be somebody that's really good at some kind of craft work. And every Saturday they'll meet with visitors for 3 hours and share with them how they make soap or lotion or whatever. So those are experiences that people really enjoy. We have some great distilleries now that are offering those kind of behind the scene tours. Even our ballet has done experiences like that where they'll bring people behind the scenes, show them the costume, explain to people how they warm up, what's their nutrition program like. I mean, really in depth, but people that are into dancing, it's really interesting. So it really kind of depends on what the experience is. But we're trying to build more, but right now, like I said, we've got about 28. But we're adding more and more, and we lean back to those communities within Wake County, whether it's the chamber, and say, listen, you know who these people are, we don't, help us find them. And so we're always out there trying to find those people. Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned how esports, when did esports start becoming like a real conversation whenever you guys talked about it, and how was it initially received?
So I would say what really got our attention was about 4 or 5 years ago, Epic Games and Fortnite did a major event in Brooklyn. And we thought, well, why Brooklyn? They're right in our backyard. What are we missing? And so that kind of opened our eyes. And ironically, about that time, there's a company called SubNation. They're based in Los Angeles, and they do a lot of the peripheral marketing and activation whenever there's an esports competition. The co-founder of that moved to Apex, North Carolina. And we found out about that. So we contacted him and said, can we bring you on contract and help us figure out this market? We know we have something here. We don't know the lingo. We don't know what the needs are. We want to make sure that we are prepared to go after this market. He's been with us now for 3 years. And he's done a phenomenal job because, first of all, he knows who all the people are, who the decision makers are, but he also, when we put together bids and packets, we are putting together information that these event organizers clearly want that most destinations aren't even addressing in their original proposal. So that has helped tremendously. So it's really just, and now we've got probably about 7 of them behind our back now, and they've all been successful. So now we're building a track record, a reputation, and it's just going to keep getting better. I'm telling you, we got 5 of these in the works now for next year that are huge, both at the PNC Arena and at the Convention Center. So it's good stuff.
So kind of a two-pronged thing. I'll start with, is there an end game? I mean, a carrying capacity. I mean, the growth is great. You guys are knocking it out of the park. How much is too much before it starts to impact the quality? I mean, you talk about quality of life or whatever, but I look at places like Nashville, Tennessee, and I mean, I know some people that live in that market or whatever. We never go downtown anymore because it's full of wedding parties and tourists and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It's not a good place for the locals. I mean, I get the tax stuff or whatever, but how much is too much, if there is such a thing?
Yeah, and we're having that conversation because we just call it smart growth. And it comes down to how much is our city or county, what are they doing from a permitting standpoint, from product? So we're being very, very careful. If you look at Austin and Nashville as two examples, they would approve anything. In Houston, Texas, same thing. I mean, they just wanted buildings. And they let a lot of the historical landmarks disappear, and all of a sudden you got traffic issues, more crime issues. So everything that we do when it comes to approving permits and even how we market it, we are very, very careful. But we know the growth is going to come regardless. We're averaging about 62 people a day moving to Wake County, which is why commuter rail is so important in bus rapid transit. But we also need to continue to make improvements to our airport. So, it's...
I like the size of it now.
Yeah, well, it's going to get bigger and better. I mean, we're adding 12 more gates over the next 5 years. So it's going to get bigger and better. But I will say, I've been in LA, Houston, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Springs. I will say out of all those destinations, this is the only destination, and we hear this a lot from other cities around the country. This is the only destination where we meet all the community leaders, the superintendent of schools, the chancellor, the city, county managers. We meet every single month, and we talk about issues. I mean, it may be an issue that the school's having right now, maybe not enough schools, or they need some renovations, but there's collaboration, and we all understand each other's challenges. And from the corporate side to the private sector to the public sector, we're all in the same boat, and we all have the same number one goal, and it's how do we maintain and continue to improve the quality of life. You go to some of these other cities, it's all, how can we make the biggest buck, the quickest buck, and how can we make the most money? That is not the mentality that we have, I think, primarily in all the state of North Carolina, but I'm speaking just on behalf of Wake County. Quality of life is number one, and before decisions are made, there's a lot of people that are giving their input and comments to, in terms of how it would impact their particular segment. Before any major decision is done. So a lot of it's just collaboration and just doing it smart.
And then my second part of that is you juggle a lot of balls in your role and so on and so forth, whatever. And can you give the students a thumbnail profile of how you got to your job?
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I mean, I was a PR major at the University of Northern Iowa, graduated in 1983. I worked for the Sports Information Department for 4 years. I had a job lined up with the Orange Bowl. I was going to work in the bowl field. And I did an internship my junior year for a small convention and visitors bureau in Iowa, and decided right then and there I found my niche. Because what we do, as you can see, it covers sales, marketing, PR, and most importantly, everything we do makes a difference in everybody's life that lives in our community. We impact jobs, we impact development, we impact, litter issues. I mean, everything we do touches how we all live and our quality of life. So we do make a difference. And to be able to have a job where you can be that involved, and hopefully making a positive difference for that community, I just said, this is it. And so I just decided right then and there, I wanted to someday be a CEO of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And I knew in order to do that, might not be so much today, but back in my day, the only way you could do that is continue to move from city to city, because the opportunities, once somebody gets to a convention bureau, they very seldom leave. Because it's a great job. So that's the reason I had to move to Los Angeles. Then I moved to Palm Springs and worked for that bureau in the resort market. I got to LA right before the '84 Olympics. So I worked in the Olympics, worked in Palm Springs, did a lot of the resort activities. But then I had an opportunity to move to Houston to be the director of sales and we had the Astrodome, the George R. Brown, two huge convention facilities, and wanted to get the big box experience. And then great opportunity came, a headhunter came and said, would you like to move to Fort Lauderdale? We're trying to get rid of the spring break image. We just built a new convention center. I thought resort, convention center, and a new opportunity. It's a branding opportunity. How do we get rid of 350,000 spring breakers, change the image, build the ADR and the quality of the hotels? So I took that job, and in about 8 years, we had one 4-star hotel, we had no 5-star. By the time I left, we had 7 5-star hotels. We had a number of 4-star hotels. Our ADR just completely almost doubled. We went more after international visitors and just completely changed the image of Fort Lauderdale. And then I got another job from a call from a headhunter for this Raleigh job. Never been in North Carolina. Came up and visited, and it was all about buying into the vision of Raleigh. Because when I got there 14 years ago, the convention center hadn't opened yet. It was under construction, and there was a lot of work to be done on building Raleigh as a visitor destination. And it was a matter of getting the right team, the right culture, the right mindset, and developing relationships from our side to make sure our community understood the importance of tourism and what they could do to help us build a better community, not only for visitors and residents. And we've been very lucky. It's working. So that in a nutshell, that's 40 years over in 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
You betcha.